Welcome back to Sasquatch Watch Radio, the show where we push past the urban legends and step into the deep woods. Tonight, we're heading out to Ohio. Joining us is veteran field researcher and co-founder of the Ohio Night Stalkers, Mike Miller. From breaking down high-pitched nocturnal howls to tracking creek-line travel routes, Mike brings 2 decades of boots-on-the-ground experience to the mic. Grab your night vision, settle in, and let's get into it. Mike, welcome to Sasquatch Watch Radio. And now, here is your host, Gary Kendrick.
Hey, everybody. We're doing a pre-recorded show tonight. This will be played on Monday. Hope everybody's doing good. We're going to hop right into it. We got Mike Miller with us this evening. I'm excited to get into it. Mike, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing? Thanks for having me, by the way.
Oh, yeah, it's a pleasure. Pleasure. Always good to have somebody new on. So you're out of Eaton, Ohio. I think I said that right.
Yes.
So kind of give us a little bit of an idea about what got you started into Sasquatch research.
Wow. I had no intention. Years ago when I was younger, way younger, I watched anything that came on TV. And back then there wasn't a lot of shows on Bigfoot or Loch Ness or UFOs. So when something came on, it was like an event. And I watched all that growing up. I still didn't think, at that time, I didn't think Ohio had big enough sections of woods for anything like that. I thought if Bigfoot's real, it'd have to be in the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia. But long story short, I lived in Huber Heights at the time, and on Channel 7, they did a report about a sighting in Ohio. And I thought it was crazy. I laughed, and I thought those people were probably drunk or they're afraid of their own shadow. It was probably a deer, and I just got a kick out of it. But back then I worked third, and I decided to, it was a weekend. Of course, you can't change your sleep pattern for the weekend, but I got online and I typed in 2 words, Ohio and Bigfoot, stumbled into I found the BFRO website, and I clicked on Ohio, and I expected to see a couple of reports. Oh no, it had reports by county, and I about fell out of the chair. And I started going through those reports, and a lot of them made me laugh, but there was a few that just kind of made your hair stand up on the back of your neck. And if you don't mind, one of those was a man in southern Ohio, and he wasn't even claiming it was Bigfoot. He just said he didn't know what was in his backyard, but he had a 5-year-old male German Shepherd. And I grew up with a German Shepherd, so I'm partial to him. But his dog, his inside door was open, the outside door was shut, which was all glass. The dog came through the door, the glass, to get back in the house, ran to the furthest point away in the house, curled up and peed itself. And those dogs don't do that. And basically, so this isn't like a 5-hour conversation. The more I looked, the more I kept finding, and I didn't expect that. And it led me to where I'm at today, out in the woods, and if you go back 20 years ago and would have told me that I'd be out in the middle of nowhere at 2 or 3 in the morning with no light on, I would have laughed and said, hey, I don't know what you're drinking, but you might want to switch, But that's basically how it got started.
That's awesome. I had a similar thing. I think there's probably about 4 or 5 years between me and you. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and I watched all those shows, In Search Of and Project Blue Book and anything that come out like that, because I was always kind of fascinated with it. And I saw the Patterson-Gimlin film, and, I think one of the biggest things was Boggy Creek. When I was a kid, it come on TV. And boy, when that booger put his hand through that window and tried to grab that guy, that got me. And I always thought it was real, but like you said, I always thought it was a West Coast thing, Washington, Oregon, and California. And I always believed that it was there, and I never thought it would be, back here in the southwest section of Virginia until I had my encounter in 2006. So yeah, I'm in the same boat with you. Once you figure it out, it's actually kind of a surprise how many sightings they are here on the East Coast.
Well, America was all wooded at one time, so
Yeah.
so they're going to be spread out. They're going to be in, and then in some places the pockets are just a little smaller. I used to not think that, but I've totally changed what I believe now based on evidence and my own personal experiences.
I have to be honest with you. There's parts of the West Coast, especially like the Pacific Northwest and places like that, where you don't have the big, huge urban sprawl, But a lot of the East Coast here, Ohio, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Tennessee, huge swaths of this is all forested. So I think we actually probably have a better chance of finding evidence and things like that here than you might even in like California. So
you are preaching to the choir, and I've brought this and made some people mad. I'm not disputing there's more Bigfoot probably in the Pacific Northwest. The trouble is getting to them because the terrain and the amount of woods and forests there is so immense. You really can't go in after them. They can move away from you, and unless you've got a horse and you've got like a month or two off of work, you're not going to be able to follow them. Where, like you're saying, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
There's sections of woods, but there's roads you can get a topographical map. You look for the water source. You go to the most woolly places, and you're probably going to find something. And there's not as many here, but we have more access to them. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think like my own personal research before I research an area, there's certain things that I look for. I look for like cover sort. Well, you got to have cover and concealment, some type of permanent water source. I think that's an important thing, a permanent water source. And then, what type of food is there? It's going to take a pretty good amount of food to sustain something that size. And like you said, especially like here where I live, old country, where I live at, there's all kinds of old abandoned mining roads and things like that up in the middle of these forests. And it's easy to get to. You just got to be willing to get up there and walk to it.
Yep.
So have you had any recent encounters?
Yeah, we've had some crazy stuff happen. We've went out about 3 times this year. Getting everybody scheduled together is kind of rough sometimes, as you probably know. But we've picked up some things on recorder. We have not had those analyzed yet, so I'm not going to say anything about those. I like to get them analyzed. David Ellis, who's a professional sound analyst from Washington State, is who I send my recordings to. And David's like Batman. He's got the equipment, and his equipment identifies the sounds, whether it's unknown or an owl or whatever else. Like the cat's going to make an appearance here in a second, but he has said that a lot of the recordings, he said, I can't say it's Bigfoot. Bigfoot's not been certified, but he goes, I can't say that you recorded no known animal in North America, and that some of the screams and howls pegged higher than a baboon on the spectrograph, which is evidence.
Excellent. I like the scientific end of it. Evidence is great. If you want to go out and find a footprint, that's fine. A lot of people will just go out till they find that footprint and then they're done. They're done. But you have to have evidence. When you have to collect it, you have to analyze it, and then you have to process it. And that's the thing. A lot of people, they'll go out and they'll find evidence and they'll tell you, I've got all kinds of footprints and I've got all kinds of this and I've got all kinds of that. And I was like, have you had it looked at? No. So I think that's an important thing, is to have it analyzed, to have it checked out, to see what it shows. So I've got some recordings that you have sent me, and I'm going to try to play one, and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully everybody can hear it.
Okay.
If I can get this crazy laptop to work. So we'll start with the first one. Okay, did you hear that pretty good, Mike?
I heard it at the very beginning, but I can't make out what it is. Can you tell me the title of it, the track?
Yeah, hang on.
Is it Angry Giant?
To tell you the truth, I don't have a title with them.
Oh.
I don't have a title on them. This one was 8 seconds long.
Was it
I don't see a title with them.
Was it Whoops?
Yep.
Okay, that was from last year, late in the fall. We were set up in an area. We have a really good area that's isolated, but if you come out this road, if you want to call it that, at the very, miles up in front of it, there is a couple houses, and the one house has a big, gigantic cornfield, and we were set up on the side of that cornfield along the river, and we call blasted coyotes howling and got that response. The long version of that recording, you hear us play the coyotes, and then you hear the response. Now, I was kind of skeptical at first because, as you can tell by those whoops, a person could do that. I mean, and I thought, what if, the people didn't know we were there, and I don't even think they're home at the one spot, and we were there about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. But there's a chance, like say somebody's outside stargazing, and they heard the coyote thing. Maybe they hollered back. But I sent those recordings to David Ellis, and he said that is not a human being because there's two different whoops there, and he said that's two different creatures. That was recorded last year in the fall.
Yeah, it's pretty good recording too, because you get the drawn out the kind of whoop. So that was a real good recording. Go ahead.
Yeah, that thing was. I'm sorry about that. Those things were actually in that cornfield somewhere close by us. We were then, if it was a football field, we were probably within 60 yards of each other, which is kind of crazy.
Oh, wow. So what was, had there been activity there before? What brought you guys to that area?
We go way back where it kind of dead ends. That area has been isolated and off limits for 3 decades. A logging company bought it. A person that I know, I'm not going to mention their name, and we were given permission to go back in there, and it's hard to get back in there. I mean, you can drive as far as you can, and the terrain is horrible. But we've had stuff happen way back in there. And that area is actually referred to by the locals as Valley of the Dead, because way back in time, there were several skirmishes with Native Americans and early settlers. And the feeling, that's Luna, sorry. The feeling you get when you go back in there is that you're in a special place. It just it creeps you out even going back in there during the daytime. And but we decided that evening we went back in there, and then as we came out, we stopped along this cornfield for something different.
Interesting. Being that close, what was the volume like where you were at?
It was distinct because I think a lot of it was the fall, and you didn't have the humidity in the air, and the sounds were really crisp, and you could tell it was, the cornfield, they hadn't harvested it yet, so the stalks were taller. I mean, they were, 7, 8, 9 foot tall, whatever, with the tassels, and so you couldn't see anything, but you knew it was in the vicinity, and you could tell, you could triangulate it and tell, hey, there's one here, there's one down this way, and which was kind of unnerving because you feel like, hey, we're all in the same yard, kind of, vicinity, and but the sounds are really clear.
Mm-hmm.
Goofy cat.
Yeah, that was pretty crisp. I just have to be honest. That was pretty crisp. All right, we'll go ahead and try to get this next one. And like I said, I don't have any titles to these, so I'm just kind of going down the line.
I can't tell. You big old cat.
Wow. Did that one come through pretty good?
No, I didn't hear it at all, actually. Did it repeat?
Lord, me and this laptop. It was a kind of a high pitched ow, and it kind of broke, and then it did it again, and it broke, and it did it again. Let me try to play it again. Let's see if I can't get this thing to play.
Any way you could put like a microphone down or something, or turn it up where I can hear?
Yeah, I've got it as loud as I can get it.
Oh, gotcha.
Let's try it again.
What are you doing?
I don't know if that come through any better or not. There's one part in the recording where I can hear you say, I think it's coming this way.
Okay, that's the graveyard. Thank you. That is from Feltner, who's no longer with the group, was there, and his son Jordan. And that's the night that put us on the television show Terror in the Woods. It's also on another network called These Woods Are Haunted, season 1. But we were in a graveyard. This road we found dead ended into a graveyard of all things, and that was recorded that night. So you've got, besides that thing howling, of course you hear the coyotes, and they seem to be intertwined together. I kind of think they got kind of a shark remora kind of a existence there, where maybe they're scavenging off each other or something. But that was from that night, and you can definitely, the thing that's howling sounds way different than the coyotes, because coyotes, even if they howl, they always go with the yippy dog thing,
Yeah. At a graveyard, that's creepy in itself, right there. Just saying.
Like I said, if you told me 20 years ago that I'd be in a graveyard in the middle of the night, I would have just looked at you like you were crazy.
Wow. That's pretty interesting. I mean, you've got some good. I'm gonna try one more, and I'm afraid this is not going to come through on the recording.
But you're doing good.
This is how they say again.
You do a good job explaining what you're listening to. I could probably tell you which I can comment on it.
Yeah, I'm trying. Me and this technology, we don't get along too good.
If you're playing them in the order I sent them, I would have to leave the studio to see what you're playing. That's the only bad thing.
Yeah, I'm playing them in the order that you sent them. This one's 57 seconds long. Let's see what we got here. Okay, that one sounded a lot like an extended Ohio howl.
Okay, did it repeat 3 times?
Yes.
Okay, that was from October 11th, 2014. Also, that is an area we call the bridge. There was a little metal bridge there. This road dead ended into the graveyard. That's one way in, one way out. We turn around after everything that happened in the graveyard. We waited like another 40 minutes. Nothing else happened. It was almost like a switch got turned off. Anyways, we started making our way out of the area that night. We stopped at that bridge, and we weren't really processing that these things were following us and getting closer, but they were within, I don't know, that's the cattail, 30, 40 yards maybe. But that one repeats. David Ellis cleaned that one up because with that creek there, it had rained so much. We actually were on a rain delay. We went into town and waited out the rain, and we didn't get out to the first spot till darn near 11 p.m. that night. But he cleaned up the water noise. He reduced the coyotes, and he looped the howl, so better chance to hear it. But that is a super strong howl because it was super close. And David Ellis said that howl on the spectrograph pegged higher than a baboon, and that's evidence.
Yeah, I've had one experience with a prolonged howl, scream. I don't know what you want to call it. It was probably 20 some seconds, maybe 30 seconds long, and it was constant. It was just a constant, and it's hard to say too, because I don't know. Like, I felt my inside shaking. I don't know how close this thing was, but I felt my inside shaking. Now, I don't know if it was like some people say, oh, well, that was projecting infrasound at you that caused it to do that, or if it was just the sheer volume of it, or if it was some kind of panic, thing where you feel yourself shaking inside. I don't really know, but it was really profound. I mean, it was loud, and it would go way up and then drop way down into like a baritone, then it go right back up and then it go way back down. It was something else. And I know it's kind of cliche. Everybody uses the Ohio howl. That is actually a good way of describing what we just heard.
Well, David Ellis told me that.
So, what prompted?
Go ahead. What prompted what?
What prompted the initial howl?
Well,
was it just out of the blue, or?
That night started the first place we went to. Mike did a howl, and we got a response, and it sounded like a young one. We went down to the graveyard. Nothing happened for darn near an hour. We almost gave up, and then we heard things approach walking. Then we heard whistling, and then the howl started different. And in those howls, if you listen close enough and replay them, they'll start with a ooh, but they finish with an ah. This thing is actually sounding out vowel sounds. Coyotes don't do that. You got to be a primate to sound out vowel sounds. But I don't know if they were answering Mike's earlier howls that he did, but it seemed like that one that you just played, they were getting closer as we were starting to head out. I think they were just kind of asserting their dominance, and I think that was like, hey, this is how big and strong I am. Can you do this? If not, you want to think about leaving, because that one was way, it was something you heard with your ears. We didn't feel it. We weren't close enough to feel it. I don't think that one was infrasound, because we've had that happen other times. And on infrasound, it's more of a direct, it just kind of gets you inside, and you don't hear a lot, with your ears on those. But it was no mistake in that thing. The lung capacity to do that, was incredible.
Yeah. Infrasound. I'm not. I know infrasound. Everybody talks about infrasound. I don't know that I've ever had an infrasound. I don't really think that I'm susceptible to the infrasound. I'm a former United States Marine. I worked in a super maximum security prison for like 14 years. My hearing is shot, and I don't think that I'm susceptible to it. Now there are some people that, like you say, you'll get the eerie feeling, the heaviness in your chest, and all that, and it takes some people down. And a term that gets used a whole lot is blasted. Oh, I got blasted, and I don't think that infrasound works like that. I think infrasound is more of a broad spectrum thing. It's just projected, and if anything there's susceptible to it, then it gets hit. I don't think necessarily if there's a group of 20 people that it just picks out Mike Miller to shoot this infrasound at. I don't think they can necessarily do that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know. I've been out. We've had people that have burst into tears or become very frightened. That hasn't happened to me, and I'm not saying I'm tougher than them. I'm just saying some people can pick up things better than others. I get the kind of, it's not ringing in your ear, but kind of like there's something going on. There's like a pressure deep inside your ears, and I felt that. But we actually picked up a recording. A girl named Angie Havens was with us that night, and she was using a bionic ear where you put the headphones on, then you point the little mini dish thing, and you squeeze the trigger, and it amplifies sound. And she was trying to see if anything was approaching, and they kind of aimed that toward her. We actually picked it up on the parabolic microphone. You can actually hear like an electrical, like zzz, kind of a sound. And the next thing you hear is her throwing the thing off of her head, and it about blew her eardrums out. But I know it's something. When they're using it basically they're using that. They're trying to get you to leave. They want you out of there. You're not welcome. Yeah. And it's their way of saying, go.
That's pretty effective too. If it's, if it's bad enough. I know you hear a lot of people talk about like metallic sounds and everything else. I know Ron Moorhead talked about hearing cowbells and things where he had the Sierra sounds recorded at. And he said there wasn't any cattle there at the time that they were up there. So it's interesting, the different noises that they can make. And, that's a pretty common undertone too, being a mimic, as Sasquatch being a mimic throughout Native American legends, Indian legends. It's all over the U.S., about how well they can like mimic other animals or even mimic people. So, yeah, that's pretty incredible. The buzzing sound. I hope to God I never hear that. Just to be honest with you, that's rough. Yeah. That's kind of like one of those Mars attacks types of deals there.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think I've got one more. We'll play it. Wow. I hope these are coming through for the audience to listen to. These are some pretty good recordings. This one almost sounds like some type of big cat. And then I don't know if it was you all but you can hear a whistle in it. Like that.
That one, if you saw the title, I know you can't see it. That one I call Angry Giant because that was 2 years ago, Memorial Day weekend. we went into that area I called Valley of the Dead, and we had set up, and you don't hear we sit there and talk normal voice for about 30, 40 minutes, nothing happened, with no light on, mind you. And then we call blasted a wolf howling, nothing happened. And then we call blasted wolves howling, just to stir things up, stir the coyotes up. And that was the response we got. I believe that's coyotes in the beginning there that you hear because they're really high pitch.
Yeah, it's pretty light. Yeah.
But that thing that comes in there in the middle, that really strong, in my opinion, that is Big Daddy saying, "Hey, Mr. Wolf, this is my freaking yard." It was not happy, and that was me. That was me going whistling, going, "Whoa, that thing is mad," But that was 2 years ago, Memorial Day weekend.
Wow. And that was pretty deep. That was a deep.
Yep.
That was a deep call too. Like I said, I hope these are coming through for everybody to hear because that was a good one. That was a good.
David Ellis analyzed that. That is not a human being. That is not a coyote. That is not a dog. That is not someone using something to pretend to be something else. That is something alive that is not happy.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think how to articulate this. So, are these recorded? How are you recording? How are these done up?
Really basic, nothing fancy. I have a 22-inch parabolic microphone, and I plug it into a basic recorder that you would use, like if you're setting in at a business meeting, and you're just recording the meeting. And I plug it into the the headphone slot there, and I face the dish at the direction I think is going to be lucky, hopefully, and something might howl or whatever. And we basically just let it record the whole time we're there. And then, it's kind of painstaking. If something happens, then I have to go back and listen to 2 or 3 hours of recordings and try to find, that one little spot where something happened. And then I isolate that, put it onto my phone, and then I send it to David Ellis so he can analyze it.
Wow. Have you ever tried primate calls when you call blast?
We have call blasted gibbon monkey sounds because back in 2020 we were in an area and we call blasted that, and it sounded familiar, really similar to a response we got that, to me, in my opinion, sounds like a young one. They have that kind of gibbon monkey kind of sound. We haven't had a lot of luck with that though, except for just a little bit. I thought that would, with it being another primate, might generate more of a response, but we seem to get more response out of the wolf howls. I don't know if it's because it's another predator, and they're worried about a wolf getting in close contact with like your young ones or something, but the wolf howls seem to generate more excitement, if you want to say it that way.
Yeah. I know we got a good response one time. We played I think it was an angry orangutan. Oh. And we got a big call back on that one. That may have been, if I'm not mistaken, that may have been when we got that 20-some, 30-second long howl. I know a lot of people will go out and they'll try to use like the Sierra sounds, or they'll download sounds from like somebody's website that supposed Bigfoot sounds or whatever, and they'll call blast those. And I'm not a big proponent of that because, to start with, we don't know what it's saying. We don't know what the calls mean, anything. And you could be broadcasting the dinner bill and you're on the menu.
You're absolutely right. I had mentioned to David Ellis in a phone conversation we had that we were attempting to download some of the howls that we've recorded onto the call blaster and then call blast those. And that's the exact same thing David Ellis said. He goes, I wouldn't do that or recommend it because you don't know what you're saying. You could be ringing the dinner bell. You could be broadcasting a mating call. I mean, you don't know. And that's a good point.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I think that people kind of get into this mentality because like the Pacific Northwest. Like the encounters that they have in the Pacific Northwest are kind of, I call it the forest hippie Sasquatch. They're kind of peaceful, they're kind of mellow and things like that. And that's not always necessarily going to be true. I think you need to always err on the side of caution when you're dealing with these things because, like I'll just use the example that I had, the one that I saw that walked across the road in front of me. It was 8.5 feet tall, maybe 800 to 1,200 pounds. So I don't think I'm going to make him real mad at me because I'm pretty sure he'd probably rip my arm off, beat me to death with the wet end. So with that being said, what are your thoughts on aggression?
I think Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it, there's probably good and bad with them, just like with people. And Pacific Northwest, like you said, they're probably maybe more relaxed because they're tougher to get to and to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Where in our area, you can get up close and personal. They probably don't like that. So anything could happen. And you've got to be vigilant and you've got to be, you got to err on the side of caution. I totally agree with that because you don't know. I mean, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say was too, with erring on the side of caution, there's worse things in the woods to run into besides Bigfoot. Okay, with the drug community the way it is, you could run up on a meth kitchen or something like that back there or whatever. So I always, be careful where you're going, be careful what you're doing, and always carry some type of protection. Now, whether that protection is bear spray, some type of edged weapon, a firearm, or whatever, make sure you have some type of protection with you. But with that being said, too, always make sure that you are proficient with whatever you're carrying for protection. Okay? Don't take a can of bear spray out in the forest to protect yourself and you have no clue how to make it work. Because that's a sure way to get hurt.
Absolutely correct. More than half of us carry. We actually had a drug run in last year where we were back in an area that we had permission to be in, privately owned. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, we didn't know they were there. They come driving up out of the woods. And we actually had them blocked from getting back to the so-called road. We actually thought they were going to ram one of our vehicles. And we actually went behind another vehicle and drew weapons. They finally stopped. They put their window down, and all they would say was, "Can you move?" And we said, "Hey, we got permission to be here. You about ran into us." And all they repeated was, "Please move." And we did, and no shots were exchanged. But yeah, you definitely got to worry about that. There's crazy ass people in the world, and you got to protect yourself,
Yeah, that's a true deal. That's a true deal. So what does Mac Miller look for in an area before he starts researching? What are your key things that you look for?
Well, you can go to a website like a BFR website. You can read reports. If you're down in that area, you can kind of figure out where they're talking about. What I like to do is we go out during the daytime and we will research an area. We want to see what the terrain looks like. We want to make sure no one's, camping back there or holed up living off the grid. You don't want to piss anybody off. And we go recon it, as we call it, during the daytime and see what we're getting into. And if it looks kind of spooky and if it looks creepy during the daytime and there's water sources and there's, food and like I said, it's woolly and looks, it's hard to get into, we're definitely going to go back there at night. And if you see it during the daytime, you kind of know what you're getting into. And like when we go back into an area at nighttime, I've watched, and I'm sure you did too. I watched enough horror movies. I turn the vehicle around. I'm facing. So, so if S hits the fan, it's not going to be like the horror movie where I'm fumbling for keys or we start to leave and I drive into a hole or I hit a tree. No, my key is already facing out. I just have to get in and floor it.
Yeah, that's a good move. I'm like you. I watched a lot of horror movies when I was a kid. It always seems like you're always parked in a bad spot.
Yeah.
So, trying to think about how I want to say this. When you guys are out investigating an area, how many people do you typically take with you? And what are your thoughts on the group size?
We got about 6 people. Sometimes that's down to about 4. We've went out with 2 before. That's kind of not enough. The 6 is kind of good. I think if you have too large of a group, that could be a detriment. But you could always split up. But it kind of depends on the area. We've noticed that if we set up in an area, if a couple people kind of mosey on down the trail during the night, they don't like that. They're trying to figure out why you're back there anyway. Because if you're set up and you're sitting there in the dark, you're not hunting, you're not fishing. But of course, if you do wood knocks or howls, they know why you're there. They say, hey, they're here for us. But anyway, when few people break off the group and go up a trail, they're trying to figure out what the hell you're doing, and that could cause get some kind of reaction. But I think a small group is better, but that's just my opinion.
We did several expeditions in this one spot in Spotsylvania County, and we did a multi-group expedition where we had people from Ohio, we had people from Pennsylvania, we had lots of us from Virginia, we had people from Texas, South Carolina. We had probably about 30 people on this one expedition. And like you said, we split up, went different areas all around this property. And man, I tell you what, that place was probably the hottest spot I've ever been. We had activity like every night. It was crazy. So do you guys have like I call it the golden hour. There's like a golden hour when you get the most activity. And it's usually like, I'll just tell you right now, for us, it's usually like between 2:30 and about 4:30, 5 o'clock. So do you guys have a time like that?
We've had stuff happen at different times. It just seems like late in the fall, September, October seems like a kind of a more magical moment. And then early in the spring, the summer kind of is hit or miss. A lot of times nothing happens. But as far as the time, a little bit later in the night, like you're saying.
Yeah, I kind of like the later in the night, 2:30 to about 4:30. That's usually when we had the best stuff. What are your thoughts on wood knocks? What do you think about wood knocks?
I think wood knocks are their way of communicating with each other. I've even talked to hunters that have heard those that are, don't believe in Bigfoot. And I'm like, that's what you're hearing. They're wood knocking to tell others, hey, we got company and you're the company. We've tried that. We will do that. But I think Bigfoot can tell how big you are by the wood knock, because we're not going to be able to pound a tree like a Bigfoot. But it is a tool, a communication tool.
I'm kind of on the fence. I don't really know. I mean, it sounds like somebody's hitting a tree with a ball bat. I've heard them. I've heard quite a few of them. But I'm kind of on the fence. I don't know if it's really them hitting the tree or maybe a chest slap or something. Because if you've ever been at a zoo, if you've ever heard a gorilla slap your chest, it doesn't sound like you slapping your chest. There's a big difference in the sound. And it almost sounds like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's more like a popping sound. But I wonder if that might be, what do you think about that?
No, that's possible. That's been mentioned by a few people. That could be chest thumping. We were in an area at East Fork State Park one night, and it wasn't what we heard. Wasn't like a wood knock. It literally sounded like they had picked up a fallen tree that had probably dry rotted. It was just, but a decent sized tree, and like picked it up and thumped it against the ground because of the weird echo, and then it kind of reverberated into the ground kind of sound. We didn't feel it, but it was just an odd kind of sound, and it sounded like a wood knock, but you could tell it wasn't a wood knock. But they could be using down timber, they could be using their chest. It's definitely it's one of those answers where you check the box all of the above.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think it's one of
I'm 100% with you on that one. It could be anything. It could be anything. So I'm going to get personal. Mike Miller. What does Mike Miller think Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it, what does Mike Miller think it is?
Well, this is just my guess. And mind you, I'm a UPS truck driver. I'm not a scientist. I think it's a mixture. I think it's part early hominid, man, whatever, maybe mixed with a little ape or something, other primate, because it's got characteristics of both, with the sagittal crest and all that. But I don't know. I'm just guessing. But it's highly intelligent. It knows we're a threat, not as a one-on-one threat, but I think Bigfoot has become more nocturnal to keep from running into us. But I think it's a mixture. I think if and there is hair samples that they're unable to identify because they have nothing to compare it to. But I think if you actually had one, it can figure out what it is. I think I'm Christian, and Bigfoot does not interfere or test or bother my faith at all. I just think it's just something else God created that we don't understand yet, and we know so little about it. We're guessing. It's everybody's best guess, pretty much. I just think if we had more evidence, it would line up on that family tree. It would make sense, kind of thing. And I'm giving you a long-winded answer. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I think it's a combination, but that's just my guess.
I'm kind of right there with you. I'm an animal guy. It's some type of living terrestrial animal. I don't necessarily believe that it's interdimensional or extraterrestrial or even necessarily spiritual. I've seen some weird things, but I can't necessarily say that those things are Sasquatch related because I didn't really see Sasquatch interacting with the strange things that I've seen. But I'm like you. I think it's some type of early hominid or maybe some type of early hominid hybrid. And, the primate thing is still out there. I mean, it could easily be any of those or a combination of all of those. But I try to stick to what I've seen, what I've experienced it's not anything really, like I said, supernatural or, interdimensional, anything like that. And this is the thing that's kind of, and I say this too much on the show, but that's the purpose of this show is I am willing to listen to everybody. Okay, if you think it's extraterrestrial, I'll listen to what you have to say. If you think it's interdimensional, I'll listen to what you have to say. Because I think people that kind of blow the woo off, they say, okay, the woo, if you're going to talk about the woo, I'm not interested. I think you're missing the information there. So I try to listen to everybody's story. I don't know exactly what happened to the person that I'm talking to, what their experiences was. So I have to take what they say at face value. Now, after they say that, I can sit down and analyze it myself and see what happens. Like one of the things, the phasing out thing. People talk about Bigfoot phasing out. I have another term for it. I call it the Homer Simpson. Everybody's watched The Simpsons. And, Homer backs into that bush and just disappears. Right. And I think that's when people say it's phasing out, I think that's what Sasquatch is actually doing. the hairs and things like we've talked about, there's not like a single color on a Sasquatch hair. It's multiple colors. On a single individual hair, there are multiple colors. So they have a tremendous camouflage system. And I think they either just, like I said, lean back into the foliage or just lay down, and you can't see them. You can't see them.
You and I think a lot alike. I don't think, if it offends people, I'm sorry. I don't think aliens brought Bigfoot here to mine gold. I mean, if you have a spaceship that can make it here, you probably have a way to extract gold out of the ground too. That's what I believe. As far as them being supernatural, I think the way they're built to navigate the terrain they live in. That's how God made them. Just like those crazy goats that can get on that real steep hillside to keep from predators from getting them. You know, they were made that way on purpose for a reason. And because Bigfoot can do some stuff like that we can't do, people think it's supernatural. It's just how it's made. And then you brought up a fascinating thing about the hair. There was a TV show, I can't remember what it was called, about 3-4 years ago. They took a hair sample. The hair sample was dark at the base, but the very tip of that hair was translucent, which means it was clear. So if the tip of your hair is clear, you can go get into that bush, like you're saying, Homer Simpson. You can go stand by something. That color is going to blend in. The hair is going to pick that up, and you're going to disappear. You know, and that's what I think it is. Is just it's natural camouflage they've got that we don't understand, but it's not. You know, it's not from outer space. It's just how they're made.
And I know you brought up, and I try to leave religion and politics out of the podcast, but you brought up a point about being religious. Now, this is the Bible Belt where I live at, okay? There's probably more churches than there are restaurants in my hometown. So, that being said, too, everybody that, I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of people that are religious and they have a conflict between their religion and Sasquatch, they say, oh, well, Genesis chapter 6 says that there was giants, so that's what it has to be. But, you know, I could sit down and write a book on why I don't think that Genesis chapter 6 is referring to Bigfoot. Because if you read the description of the Nephilim in the Bible in Genesis chapter 6, it says that they were men of great renown. It says men. It doesn't say that they were these ape-like. And they knew what apes were. They had seen apes. They'd seen monkeys. They knew what they were. It doesn't say it was anything like that. It said they were men of great renown. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap. Oh, well, my religion's going to conflict with what I believe in here. But I don't have that problem. You can take science and use science and still be religious. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I'm totally against the Nephilim thing. I don't think it is.
I've heard people say that. I don't know. All I know is God did not explain everything he made. He doesn't have to. That's just like outer space. You have all that space up there, and it goes up for billions and billions of miles. And I can't see God leaving all that space out there empty with nothing else alive. I mean, that would be a waste of space, would it not? And and he doesn't have to explain everything. And I'm just, but that's a whole nother realm to get into on its own. But I just think Bigfoot's terrestrial. It's always been here. All the Native Americans have a term for Bigfoot. This is before we were here, and it was just the Native Americans in North America. And none of their terms refer to Bigfoot as a god or a deity. It's all keeper of the woods, watcher of the woods, hairy man of the woods. The area we research at was inhabited by the Shawnee Indians, and their word for Bigfoot translates into the watchers. So it's always been here. So I think they're terrestrial, and of course I went down a rabbit hole again answering, but I'm with you on that.
Oh, look, you're gonna have no problems. I'm a talker. I like to talk. That's my thing. And bringing up the Indian thing, there's all kinds of native legends. I'm part Native American myself, so there's all kinds of native legends about how Sasquatch would take an Indian woman and breed with them. So, with that being said, they have to be fairly close genetically to what we are for them to be able to breed together. So that kind of falls back onto the whole, maybe it's some type of hybrid or maybe it's some type of hominid.
I don't know. You're talking about a big difference in the size of anatomy on that one, but I mean, It could happen. I don't know.
Yeah, I read a Shawnee legend one time where it talked about how Sasquatch would take women and breed with them and have viable offspring. There was I can't think of where it was at. It may have been in Kentucky. The Shawnee were kind of spread out. There was a lake, and there was like an island on the lake, and that island was where the half Sasquatch and half humans lived. So it was pretty neat. It was pretty interesting little legend. So, how often does your group get together and go? I know you said you've been out 3 times this year. How often do you guys get out and get together?
Try to as much as possible. People have work and family commitments. We're getting ready to go next week, actually, back down there. So we're trying to do, instead of multiple 1 to 2 day little jogs down there, we're trying to do like an extended 4 or 5 days at a time. Because we've had bad luck with the weather this year. It's like every time we go down there, it's raining torrentially. But we try to get as much as possible. Back 2020 was a little different. We went out all the time because everything was closed. But as much as we can. I'm getting ready to retire here in a couple of weeks, actually. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. But as much as possible.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. I think the more time you spend in your basic research area, I think the better your research will be because you become more accustomed to the natural sounds of the forest and what's not natural.
Yep.
A lot of people, and I know you guys have them there in Ohio too, we have barred owls. We have a lot of barred owls back here. And barred owls, actually, it's a mating call. A caterwaul is what they call it. And I've had a lot of people say, hey, that sounds like a monkey. What is that? That's an owl. It's not a monkey. That's an owl. So I think it's good to be familiar with what you're hearing. Some of the things that you're going to hear will scare the fire out of you, but they're not anything at all to be worried about. It's something small. Like when I was growing up, screech owls. I was scared to death of screech owls because they made this big, huge noise. Screech owls only about this tall. They're just a little old bitty owl. They used to scare me to death because they make this big, long, loud call. Like in your all's part of Ohio, what what's like the terrain and things like there? What's basically, is it hilly or?
Well, where we go, it's the start of the Appalachian Mountain System, and it looks more like West Virginia than it does Ohio. The pictures I show to people at work and friends, they don't think that we're in Ohio, and I'm like, yeah, that's actually Ohio. Ohio is not all flat and cornfields, but the terrain is really rough. That's another reason we always do a daytime recon, because you just want to know what you're getting into before you go in the middle of the freaking night.
Yeah, that's a true deal. You don't want to break a leg out there in the middle of the woods. Not even. Well, look, we've been talking for about an hour, and I've got a little something for you here. All of our guests that come on, we have AI make a song for them. So if you've got just a minute, I'm going to play Mike Miller's song here. So let's get it going. Okay.
in Preble County, when the daylight starts to fade, Mike Miller grabs his recorder and steps into the shade, leaving Eden behind him for the dark along the stream, chasing down an echo of an old Buckeye State dream. 2 decades on the trail, watching tree lines in the dark, looking for a shadow past the edges of the park. He's a night stalker searching through the Adams County pines, listening for the howls bouncing down the creek lines. Is it just a tall tale or a giant in the air? Mike Miller's in the dark, and he swears something's there. When the wood knocks start ringing through the autumn night chill, he checks the audio spectrum while the woods go deathly still. Not looking for a story, just the facts and what is real, tracking footsteps in the mud to prove what people feel. Partnered on the ridgeline, waiting for a call, standing near the timber where the giant shadows fall. He's a night stalker searching through the Adams County pines, listening for the howls bouncing down the creek lines. Is it just a tall tale or a giant in the air? Mike Miller's in the dark, he swears something's there. For Sasquatch roar in the deep Ohio woods, he's listening for more.
Man, that was a good one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I like that. That's got that dirty South grit to it. I like that.
Yep.
All right. So, night crawlers. Let's talk about a little of the technology that you guys take in the woods with you. I know you've got your recorders and your like your parabolics, things like that. But what other technology do you guys take into the research with you?
We have like the early generations, the night vision goggles, whatever, or not goggles, but like a handheld, and basically recorders, and that's about it.
I have to be honest with you. I'm the primitive guy. Like in my group, I don't carry a whole lot of technology with me. I've incorporated some here lately. I bought my first set of night vision binoculars for some distance viewing at night. That's the only thing that I want to use it for. I don't want to be tied to a set of night vision, to do anything with. And something too new that I kind of want to start incorporating into my own research is a UV light. That way, like a blue light, that way I can start, if you find like some evidence, like a footprint or something like that, you can kind of go around and see if there might be any biologic material there with it. So that's something new that I'm trying.
Yeah, we use red light and blue lights. Yep. I'm gonna have to plug my phone in here pretty soon. I'm going to move to another room.
Well, if you need to go, that's fine, brother. We can go, or we can continue on there. What you need to do, you tell me.
If you want to continue, I can. I just need to go plug the phone in. Are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with
Okay.
that.
All righty. Well, hang on. Let me bring the record. I'll fix it up in here. Hang on. Gives you a chance for your commercial break. There we go.
All right. Sorry about the gong. I had to sneak that in there. So,
Oh, it's okay.
night crawlers as a group, what do you guys think your strengths are as far as research goes, and what do you think your weaknesses are?
Well, I've never been asked that question. I think the Night Stalkers are a dedicated group that will go get into some of the craziest places you've ever seen. Noah's got a couple of sisters that I'm not the dad of, but they'll make fun of him, and I'm like, your sisters wouldn't get out of the car in some of the places we go, but dedicated to go into some woolly, crazy areas. I don't know about weaknesses. Everybody's different, but we come together good. We work together good together as a team, and and it's you've got to enjoy the people you're with to do this. On our Ohio Night Stalkers Facebook, or how should they start a group? And I'll just say that we kind of have a set group, and we're kind of leery taking people into places because once they see where you go, they know where you're going. And a lot of them places are privately owned. We have permission to go into, but I just tell people get like-minded friends and go. Don't ever go by yourself because you could fall and get hurt. A lot of places we go, there's no cell phone service, and you could be at risk to the elements and creatures. And I'm giving you a roundabout answer again. I'm sorry, but
No, it's fine.
I think it's fun to share it with people that that's my final answer. I'm not going to phone a friend or nothing.
Yeah, you mentioned something there. It makes it a lot better when you have some dynamic in the group. If you don't have a good group to work with, or everybody's ethics are not the same, then that's when things start to trickle off and it gets bad. I've seen it happen to a lot of groups, and that's the thing. I'm all about sharing information. Okay. If I know something that I think might work, I'm going to pass it on to like you guys or somebody else. You know what I'm saying? But now when it comes to like research areas, just like you said, one of the first things that you've got to do as a researcher is you have to respect private property. Okay, that's not yours. Just because Mike Miller has permission to go there doesn't mean that I've got permission to go there. Okay, because what you're going to do is you're going to end up making the landowner mad, and not only can you not go onto that property, but whoever actually had permission to go on there is not going to be able to go back on that property. So I think that's a big thing. You brought up a good point. You have to be careful with that. And it could be a really good spot that, now you got two sets of researchers that's completely lost out on it. Are you there, Mike? Freeze up. I think Mike may have froze up there. Well, we'll give Mike a second to see if he can unfreeze there. We've lost him. His phone may have died. Well, guys, that being said, we've been on here a little over an hour. Really appreciate Mike coming on. Appreciate all the answers that he gave us. And hey, it was a good show, good time. This, like I said, this is a pre-recorded show. This was recorded on Sunday, and I'll play this, Monday morning or Monday evening, 9:00 as usual. So listen, you guys come back, check this out. Up, here we go. Froze up on it. Are you there? It did it again. This is what I'm talking about. I hate technology. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
My phone.
Did it again. Yeah. It'll catch up in a minute.
It's something about StreamYard. StreamYard like heats my phone up. Maybe it's because my phone is old. I need a new phone. That's probably it, actually.
But
I hate technology sometimes.
Oh, me too. Me and this laptop, boy, I can bang this thing off the floor sometimes. It makes me so mad. I think it's just people from our generation. I think that's what it is. We grew up without cell phones. We grew up without computers and things like that. And kids today, they can't do anything without them. So,
and air conditioning.
Yeah,
we didn't have air conditioning at the house.
I'm gonna be 100% honest with you, and some people are going to think I'm lying about this, but this is the gospel truth. I never had air conditioning in a house that I lived in until I joined the United States Marine Corps. It was the first place I ever had air conditioning. I think we've lost him again. So, with you guys being out of Ohio and things like that, I know you're kind of in a little. How far are y'all from Salt Fork?
I believe you.
Well, this thing is lagging bad.
Air conditioning, to me, from where I used, the only bad thing leave the studio and re-enter to see if it helps?
I don't know. Yeah, it's lagging pretty bad right now. Can you hear me?
Let's see. I'm trying to see if I can make it better. I don't know what I can do on my end.
Yeah, I don't know. This is unusual. This only happened a couple of times on the show. And it looks like we've lost Mike again. Well, guys, like I said, like we've lost Mike again. He's having some internet issues, I believe. So I'm just going to go ahead and end the show right now. I appreciate everybody tuning in, listening in. Maybe we have some resolution here. Can you hear me, Mike? Well, guys, like I said, with some technical difficulties here, we're just going to go ahead and end the recording. And, hey, we'll catch you guys next week. We got another exciting guest coming on. Be sure to check us out. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for listening tonight. Everybody have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. We are incredibly grateful for our community. Because of you, we've surpassed 6,700 subscribers and continue to grow every day. Our mission here at SWR is simple: to provide a platform for honest, down-to-earth discussions about Bigfoot, free from drama and ridicule. If you've enjoyed the show, please help us spread the word. If you're interested in being a guest, you can reach us via our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, or by emailing us at sasquatchwatchradio@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to access our full archive dating back to 2008 and to stay updated on all upcoming episodes. If you've had a sighting or an encounter you'd like to report, let us know. We have a network of researchers across the United States ready to assist. You can now find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. Please leave us a comment and let us know what topics you'd like to hear next. We'll see you next Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Until then, keep on squatching.